Hey folks, this is John Miller, Executive Editor with WV News. We would like to welcome you to Ask the Experts, featuring John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. John is the founder, owner, and certified wealth strategist at Beacon Wealth Management. You can find out more at bwmwv.com. And now live from the studios of the Exponent Telegram in Clarksburg, West Virginia, let's Ask the Expert. Welcome to Ask the Expert with John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. John, we're coming off of the threat of a government shutdown. Now there's questions of maybe another one in 45 or 60 days. We hear inflation, recession. It's really easy for the common person to get caught up in all these worries. What's the outlook for investing in the stock market? Is that still the place to be, or what's your thoughts?
You know what? I'm always going to be a believer in the stock market. And the reason why I say that, okay, if you think about what the stock market represents, the stock market represents our U.S. economy. And our U.S. economy represents the people that work in it. And so what you're saying is that if you believe the stock market's going to fail, then you're believing humanity is going to fail. And so if humanity does their job, okay, we're going to always earn a living. If we earn a living, we're going to always want to spend money. And if we spend money, that creates demand, which there's companies out there that creates product, and that's what's going to keep our economy going. And you know, one thing I always tell people is if you look at every single decade, there's always been time periods where you say, you know what? The end of the world's coming. This is it. Got to get out. You know, we're going to panic. But what happens is that unfortunately, people who react like that, unfortunately make some of the worst decisions of their life, because unfortunately they're selling at time periods that doesn't necessarily make sense for them simply because they didn't have a game plan. Now, the one thing I'll tell you though is that if you're going to be in the market, don't be in it foolishly. Don't just throw your money in, turn a blind eye. No, that's not how it works. It's not set it and forget it. What you got to do is you got to invest it with a purpose. And so what I always tell people is you've got to clearly define what your purpose is. As a simple example, John, you're an older gentleman, okay? And so you're closer to a retiree. So a person in your situation, you might be thinking, hey, you know what? I need this for income. Okay, I need this to produce an income to offset my lifestyle. So for someone in that situation, it's going to be completely different than, let's say, somebody who's 35 and says, you know what, I'm investing for growth. You know, and because I'm investing for growth, you know, I don't need to worry about the short term of it. But you got to define what those clear things are. And so one of the things I tell people is, let's think about this: is income going to be a big factor? Is liquidity going to be a big factor? You know, are withdrawals going to be a big factor? You know, or what are you thinking about in taxes? Because sometimes when people invest, you know, they got to be thinking, am I getting in the most tax advantageous way to do this? You know, and you got to be thinking, even if you're in your situation, John, you got to be thinking, okay, wait a minute. Am I still going to grow money? Because the question I ask every retiree is this: sure, right now we can get what I consider to be principal protected money at 5%. And that's amazing compared to what it was. But if we throw every dime we have into that, how do we offset this thing called inflation? Because the one thing we know about inflation, it's a beast. I mean, think about this, and I want everybody to think about this. If you've lived on this planet, okay, more than 60, 70 years, and you remember back when you purchased that first house and how much that house cost, okay, compare that to how much your car costs today, okay? Compare those two. And what you'll see is that the car that you used to think of only costing you $1,000 is now a $50,000 machine. It's a ship, you know, it's a technology ship, and it can do all kinds of amazing things, but it's not cheap. Whereas back in the 70s, you could buy a home for $25,000, $50,000. And so that's what inflation is. And I tell people is, let's not be in denial. Even if you're a retiree, you've got to balance out. How do I have income that can work for the rest of my life? How do I also get growth so that I can make these investments work down the road? But also, how do I transfer this money to my children in the most tax advantageous way? So those are the components you got to be thinking about when you invest.
You know, John, you always do a great job of bringing us into focus here. And the one thing that you've always stressed in our past segments has been the need to know each individual is different. Okay, everybody's got different goals. So you sit down with people, you let them explain to you what they want to do, and then you help guide them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anybody who tells you, hey, look, I got this sexy investment. You know, QQQ made 40%. And you say QQQ is the NASDAQ 100. And you say, look, we got to go into that. That's a salesperson. And the one thing that I'm not a believer in is I believe no different than your health, your wealth should never be sold to you by salespeople. You need professional advice. You need someone that's going to take a fiduciary standpoint. And what that basically means is they've got to take the time to understand you. They got to know what you're wanting to accomplish. They got to know how you feel. Because unlike your health, where we have science to help the doctor, you know, you get your blood work done, your A1C is 8.5, the doctor goes, hey, we got to get that thing down. But guess what? There's no indicator like that when it comes to wealth. You know, I have to take the time to listen to you. And so I have to understand you. So that is the absolute most critical thing. And then once we understand you, the second thing we got to do is we got to say, okay, what are the potential train wrecks? Because for everybody, there's things they just didn't know about. And then also, what are the missed opportunities? Because as a non-professional, you're not going to know the things that I know. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying people can't do things on their own, but there's a big difference between doing something every single day versus just doing it occasionally. And so that's what I'm looking for is I say, okay, this is where you want to go. These are the things you want to accomplish. You know, here's the potential train wrecks or missed opportunities. And now we got to figure out what's the right strategy. We got to look at it from a fiduciary standpoint and come up with the strategy that's going to be exactly suited for your individual unique circumstances. So right on, John. Absolutely.
Final take on investing in the stock market. What's your thoughts?
Again, I'm happy with the stock market. You know, now, let's keep perspective. If someone came to me and they said, hey, John, I just want to invest for 1 year, just 1 year, and I want to invest in the market, I'm like, no way. That doesn't make sense because we don't know if the 1 year is going to be up or down. And even if we tried to predict it, that's silly, okay? But if you said to me, hey, John, look, I'm comfortable with risk. I know that my time horizon is on down the road, and I want to be able to make the most money I can. Well, history shows that the stock market has been a winner, not just the stock market, but the growth market in general. But again, it's all about defining purpose. We've got to clearly segment our portfolios. Whatever part of it's for income, whatever part of it's for emergencies, whatever part of it's for our legacy, and whatever part is for growth. But if you're looking for a growth component of your portfolio, absolutely, I'm 100% comfortable with investing in the stock market for people in that unique situation.
Well, once again, welcome to the expert. Welcome to Ask the Expert with John Halterman. John, as always, great talking with you. I want to thank you for joining us once again, and have a good day. Ask the Experts, featuring John Halterman of Beacon Wealth Management. John is the founder, owner, and certified wealth strategist at Beacon Wealth Management. You can find out more at bwmwv.com.